Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the joint Select Board, Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, March 25th. The time is 6:30 PM. At this time, we're going to take a vote to go into executive session.
I just gotta
Yep, go.
call us into.
Yep, I'm going to do the same thing. I was going to pass it to you
Okay.
for you to do it as well. So as we have two boards here, we're going to take separate votes for each to go into executive session. I'm going to hand it over to Steve Johnson at this time to open up his meeting, and we'll take the vote at that time.
All members of the planning board being present, call this meeting to order. Want me to do the executive first?
Go right ahead.
So I have a motion to move us into executive session.
So moved.
A motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous.
All right. And as our planning board chair mentioned, the reason for this meeting is to talk about litigation matters, and this would be detrimental to have an open session, so we're going to go into an executive session. At this time, I'm going to take a vote to go into executive session for the select board. I get a motion, I get a second. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sure. At this time, Mr. Holland, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder? Yeah.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. That's a 4-0 vote. We are in executive session. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the joint select board meeting for Wednesday, March 25th. The time is 8:18. I apologize. Prior to this meeting, we had an executive session, and now we're going into our regular session. At this time, I would ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on our agenda, we have residents. Is there any residents that would like to be heard? Seeing none, we will move on to new business. The only item we really have on the agenda tonight is the MBTA Communities Act, a complaint filed by the Commonwealth against the town to determine if the two boards can develop a consensus for an alternative MBTA Communities District to be submitted to a special meeting for the state for approval. All right, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Mr. You can start with if you want to make any comments or anything, discuss anything.
So I guess, I don't know how we want to approach this, if we want to discuss, the ideas that we might have for how this might look, or if anyone has any suggestions. I don't know how you want to.
Yeah, that's sort of thing. What I want to do is, I have my ideas. I just want to get your,
I guess, point out that, I think everybody up here on the board, and I'm not speaking for anybody, but I think I know the sentiment of everybody up here. We agree with pretty much everybody at home that this is an awful law, written poorly, and foisted upon 170 some odd communities to deal with. And that's, I think everybody agrees with that. But the reality is it's a law, and we're in a position now, as this has rolled along, that we've at least had a conversation about what's the most likely outcome and where we're going to end up at the end of this if we don't take the opportunity to potentially put something forward that we can, kind of all agree on and hopefully present to the town for their consideration while we still have control over the process. The state's already pushing us towards something. This is maybe our last opportunity to at least exert some of that control over this before the state potentially takes the full control and gives us something that's, really unpalatable in terms of, forcing a zone on us and, where that might be with no control over that. And I think that we, in our discussions, at least recognize that, that is a possibility down the road. We've also discussed the fact that in the meantime, we're losing funding, that's going to continue until this is resolved one way or the other, whether it's with an end point with the state doing something or us and the town eventually voting to do something that, meets the requirements. And that's the boat we're in. And that we, when weighing it all together, that if we can come up with something that, while we don't love it, that we can work with, and that we think that the residents can hopefully wrap their arms around after we, explain it with all the surrounding information, that, hopefully we can have something, that we can present to the town and, explain to the town why we're presenting it, why we think it is in the town's best interest, and then leave it up to the town to, give us an up or down vote on whatever that is, and then go from there. We either are done at that point, or we see what happens next. Sum it up about right.
Yep. And to that point, what I just would add is that, we understand the residents are the ones who are going to make the final decision on this. It's not going to be us up here. Our job is to know all the facts. Things have changed. We've had a lawsuit, and so we decided that we'd get together and try to have a discussion if there's something that we should be presenting to the town again. We have additional information. It came in front of a lawsuit, and now it's to a point where, do we bring something back to the town for the residents to have their voice heard again? Not to say that, we're trying to dictate to you what to do or whatever it is. It's just we're trying to do our due diligence to find what's best for the town. We've got a lot of people that telling us to Our voice has been heard. We understand that. We also have a lot of people saying we're worried about the grants that are going to the schools and other things that have been happening. So our job is to listen to everyone and do our best to try to find something for the residents to have and have a discussion. Do we decide to bring something back to town meeting at some point and let the residents' voice be heard again? If they vote yes, great. If they vote no, great. That's what we have town meeting for. And we can discuss that at this point. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and just open it up to my board and have them, the goal of this meeting is to see if if the boards can develop a consensus around a district proposal. I'm going to open up Mr. Ryder and have your first comments and start there.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not to, beat a dead horse, but again, we all agree that this is not what the community voted for. They voted it down. But with the impact on the grants that we are being denied or basically told not to apply for because we're non-compliant with the MBTA Communities Act, we have to look at the best interest of the town and look if we can use current complexes and come up with a smaller zone somewhere else in the town that could possibly meet the requirements and be accepted by the state. Again, whatever we come up with, there'll be opportunity for residents to be heard, ask questions, we can explain, and as the chair stated, ultimately be presented at a town meeting at a future date that the residents can vote on, whether they vote yes or they vote no. And again, I sit up here elected by the residents, as the rest of my colleagues do, that we are your voice. And we're trying to do the best for the town. And we've heard you loud and clear. So that's why we're here tonight, to try and come up with something that is palatable. May not be the best, may not be what we want, but will help us meet compliance and ultimately the ability to restore grants back to the town. So again, that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at working with the planning department and both boards to look at a zone of a smaller size, as well as using some of the existing stock that we have for apartments to meet that original 50 acres. So again, that's what we're here for. And anything that we come up with will ultimately be presented to the community for their input and discussion. So that's all for now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Would you like me to continue with my board, or would you like to take a turn to bring one of your board members up and we can rotate back and forth?
Back and forth?
Yeah, I figured that.
Mr. Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to have the board members here together. We're on the same page, I think, trying to do what's best for the town. I voted earlier when we had town meeting against this MBTA proposal because I don't like anybody from the state coming in telling us what to do. I think we do a pretty good job in Tewksbury doing planning and select board people and school committee people in this town to do what's right for the town. We've done a lot of building in the town. We're up at 10% for our affordable housing numbers. A lot of towns aren't at 10%. We've done a lot of building in the past, and we've always incorporated, either fee in lieu of money or affordable housing units to keep our numbers going. And we're at that 10%, and we're still not going to be going below that, I don't think, for a number of years. We should be in good position for that. I know I've been reading on this MBTA Communities Act. It's not a good act, which is what everybody, I think, probably realizes that now, and it's some of the numbers and stuff coming out are not good. But again, we have to look at what's best for Tewksbury, and hopefully we can, as a joint board and with my planning board members, look at different areas in town that we can look at again and say what's the least intrusive to the town. I mean, traffic is always a problem in town. We know that. We don't want to add to that problem if we can help it, but looking at different sites around town that could possibly work, and then using some of what we have coming up. Trahan School may be coming up and so forth. So again, I'm not in favor of this Communities Act, but I'm in favor of doing what's best for the town. This legal action coming against the town, we knew it was coming. Well, it's here now, and we have to do something about it. So the residents voted unanimously 4-1, I think it was, against this MBTA Communities Act, and I think a lot of towns are realizing it's not that great. And we said that years ago when we voted, and I don't know, we may have to be looking at it again and retaking the numbers and what's going to happen to us as a community. So, but thank you very much. All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Mackey?
So I'm going to echo the sentiment, which again, everyone has heard multiple times. I personally don't like this law. I don't believe anyone at this table does. But this is what we knew was coming all the way back years ago when we first voted it down. And my understanding is for tonight, we are trying to put together a framework so we can move expeditiously and present something that is hopefully as much of a win-win for the town and gives the state enough to not come in and impose a special master. Because one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is it's not just it goes back to town meeting and we vote it down and that's the end of it. There are real consequences if we are pursuing this in good faith collectively as these two boards. Residents do need to understand that another town meeting vote does not make this go away. We are just back where we are now, continue to lose grants along the way. We have the continued threat of a special master coming in and choosing the zone with no say from the town. So we're the voice of the residents as elected officials, but we're not just here to echo comments we hear. We're also here to make hard decisions. I think everyone up here will agree that no decision makes everyone happy, and every decision I've ever made, I've got people reaching out that they weren't happy about it. So we're doing the long-needed mitigation to this situation, and I think this is overdue, and I'm glad that we are actually doing it now. And I'm hoping that we leave here tonight with a framework for what the proposal will be, and then we are hopefully meeting again in short order to try to solidify this. We do need to be moving expeditiously because there is legal action pending, and we don't have the same 5 years we did before. So this will move quickly. Nobody's trying to hide anything. Ask your questions, be engaged, but there's going to be a process here and it is going to move rapidly. Thank you.
Mr. Fuchsia?
So I am not in favor of this MBTA Act because of the fact that, like I stated months ago, that it's like a cookie cutter law and it doesn't always fit every single time. But we do have our back up against the walls, and we have to look at the whole thing and what is right for our town. And I'm willing to work with both groups and try to find the best solution for our town at this point. I still believe that I feel as though our state reps, our state legislature should be helping us some way, form, either whether it be looking at the law and going back to the original law. There should be some sort of implication because they got us into it. I feel like they should help us get us out. And that's all I have to say.
Mr. Holland?
Yes, I agree with my colleagues, what they said, especially what Mr. Fuchsia just said, the state representatives and the senators. Hey, remember, this is an election year, and we can call our representatives and our senators. We only get so far, but if residents call them and put pressure on them, maybe they'll do something for once. I do agree that we are in a situation that we do not want a master choosing the destiny for this town. I think if we do what Mr. Ryder was suggesting as a paper compliance, mostly paper, hopefully, that we can get out of this unscathed. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I would like to thank the planner and town manager and our respective chairs for putting this meeting together. I think it's probably way overdue, that we all put our heads together to try to come up with a plan to be in some type of compliance. And I appreciate all the decorum here tonight as well. We definitely, I think we need to map out a way where we can all find some middle ground and something that can, that can work for the boards, work for the residents, and work to get us in compliance with the state so that we can resume our funding, resume our grant funding, which we have already lost some of that. That's irreplaceable. We're not getting that back. And I think we're on the right path. And I think if we just continue to do what we're doing, I think we can make some good progress here on the zoning. We can come up with a zone that's palatable, for most, most people, most of the residents. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've had a lot of thoughts about this law, about its many, many flaws. I have pages and pages of notes, articles that I've emailed myself. But there's probably a lot of different laws that I don't like or don't agree with because we're all different. We all have our own priorities. We all have our own families, our own towns that we're looking out for, and they're all very different. What it comes down to now is maybe it's not palatable, but we have a limited number of options going forward. And while the voices of the residents of Tewksbury have been heard, as elected officials, we'd be doing you a disservice if we didn't act in what we in our hearts believe was in the best interest of the town. So, the strong beliefs and the objections to this law and that deep desire to preserve the character of the town as it is, we've all seen that at every football game, every hockey game, a lot of our planning board meetings, for certain. We've seen the desire to preserve the character of the town. But this is a law, and I guess we are tasked as your boards here to find a path forward that is agreeable to the town, to the residents of the town. And we're going to brainstorm as many options as we can, try to put something in front of the powers that be to show that we're determined and genuinely making an effort to try to comply. And we just need the residents to come on board. I thought we had a pretty good consensus when we went through the original zoning as far as, we looked at a number of different options. We had Trollbrook, we had Main Street, we had Emerald Court, and we went through a lot of process, involved a lot of the residents, selected what I thought was the least objectionable option, even if not the most popular one, put it in front of town meeting, and it got shot down. So I don't know if the people, and I think there was a lot going on there that maybe people thought that this was going to go away. And to them, I would say, if you think we can delay this until November because a Republican governor is going to come and save us, look at the polls, please, before putting your eggs in that particular basket. That's probably not what's going to happen. So we as the board, we're going to be responsible in coming up with options, trying to work with the state to put together something that preserves as much of the character of the town as we can. But we really need you, the residents, to get on board with us, be honest in your responses, be honest in your desire to collaborate with us, give us direction, and we'll work for you 100%. But if you send us on wild goose chases or just have us chasing windmills and then you're going to shoot it down again at town meeting, things will eventually go very, very badly. And eventually will probably come to the town a lot sooner than you think. And it will definitely be sooner than November. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right. When we discussed this, there's a lot of things wrong with this law, a lot. And we've all sat here, we're very involved in our community. Each and every one of us go out and talk with residents every single day. One of the things that has been my biggest argument on this whole MBTA communities is that it wasn't statewide. It was just in the MBTA communities. We thought it was kind of a joke, the fact that we only have a bus line going through our community and not everybody's getting on a bus. It's a silly law that it's like if they really think that, zoning 1,200 units would be, everyone's getting on the bus is absolutely ridiculous. But that's what we got up at our State House right now. But with that said, I also get frustrated that we've built a lot in this town. Everyone in this room knows how much we've built in this town. And the fact that they didn't take that into consideration is very, very frustrating that we've built so much in this community. And so my take on it is that, I would like to see if we could find a way to submit that existing housing that we've already built that no one probably liked in the first place, but at least if we built it and it's here, get some credit for it when we're submitting a plan and say, hey, listen, you're telling us we need 1,200 units. Well, over the last 3 or 4 years, we built 500 units or 600 units. Cut that number down. So they say you can count that some of that as an existing, this is compliance because we built it in the last couple of years, and see if we can get that forward. We don't know if they'll say yes, but we got to make an effort. We got to find a way to try to find something that the residents can wrap their arms around and say this is something that is. The other zone, I'm going to leave it up. I'm going to let other people talk in this room and have any ideas, because we're going to come up with something that, I guarantee you, everybody sitting at this table, if they could come up with a way to put 0 in here, every one of us would do it. Because we know the residents don't want over congestion. We know they don't want more traffic. They know we don't want to have congested schools. We don't want all the things. We hear you. We're all hearing it, but we're trying to find a way that we don't lose grants for the state. We don't have somebody come in. I know there's a lot of threats, and I hear a lot of people saying, hey, listen, let them come after us. We'll take the consequences. That's fine. We're not trying to, that's up to you. You get the final say. We're going to go to town meeting one way or another if we come up with something tonight or not. If we come up with something, no matter what we come up with this table, we're not going to have the final say. You are. But we should do our due diligence to try to come up with something that takes the pain away a little bit and see if the residents are going to look at it in any way, shape, favorably. Because they know, listen, you may not agree with it, but if they're going to take away grants, they're going to take funding, and we're not going to get roads repaved, we may lose fund, all the different things that may happen, we have to take that into consideration, and we want your voice heard on both sides. And so that's why we're here tonight. So I'm just, hopefully we can come up with, some sort of resolution that we can find a way of causing as little pain to this community as possible. And I'll leave it up to, I'll pass it over to Mr. Johnson.
I mean, we've all said some of the similar things. I think, what I think all of us hope we can at least convey out to the residents is we all understand the dislike and all that, but we also need the residents to understand, the situation. I mean, obviously 2 years ago, we brought this up at town meeting. We didn't know a lot of what we know now. I mean, we thought things might go differently. We thought certain lawsuits might be successful. They haven't been. We thought maybe some changes might happen at the State House. They haven't. We didn't think some of the grants or some of the areas where grants could be lost, like schools or public safety, those kind of things, really wouldn't be in jeopardy. They have been, they are. So what we know now is a lot different than what we knew 2 years ago. And, we're trying to recognize that. We hope that we'll be able to explain that to the residents, that while many of us might be doing this with, one hand tied behind your back and the other one holding your nose, The reason we're doing that is because we recognize that the alternative of what the town could face, someone mentioned the special master, with mentioning the money that we're losing, that just keeps happening. But at the end of the day, the most likely outcome of this is that if we do nothing, a zone is going to be imposed anyways, but we're going to have no control over that. It could go anywhere. It could go in the place that we all want it not to go the most, whatever that might be in any one person's mind. That's where it could end up, and we have nothing we can do about it at that point. We're at a point now where at the end sort of our ability to have control and say over this process, awful as it may be, this might be our last bite at the apple to try to come up with something that we can give to the residents that you might be able to, Mr. Kratman said, wrap your arms around. You might not like it, but it could save the residents from a much more draconian response from the state that's going to hurt a lot more and potentially harm us for a much longer time than anything we might be able to pull together and put out there for you. That's what I think we're here for tonight. I think we've got sort of the framework of some ideas of what we think we could maybe try to do, and then we're going to try and pursue those. But, as some of the other folks up there have said, this has been a 5-year process. We're kind of under the gun at this point, so things need to move quickly. This isn't us or anyone up here trying to slip anything by anyone. We want to be as transparent as possible. That's why we're all up here together tonight, why we're likely to be back together again probably soon. The efforts being made by the folks up here, or at least the efforts we hope we're going to be able to undertake, are for, in our view, in the best interest of the town. It's the only reason we're doing it. If we thought there was a different way, a different path, we'd pursue it. We've pursued those or allowed other towns to try and pursue them on our behalf in the hopes we might be able to tag along, but they just haven't worked out, and there isn't a lot of hope that there's anything left out there that isn't going to get us at the end point to, one way or the other having this happen. And I just think most of us feel like having some control over that is the best option left to us. And, it's, some of the folks up here I think are doing something that's tough, is to, sort of change their view on something, the way they've viewed it up to this point. That's not easy. I think we all expect, but I think some of those folks expect a lot of backlash for that. And, I understand why that might happen. I only ask the residents consider the fact that some of the folks who've been most against this, what does it tell you if they feel at this point that they're in a position where they got to try to do something for the best interest of the town? That's tough. And if the fact that they're willing to do that, I hope the residents will at least take that into their consideration and put it in their calculus when they look at what we're trying to do and what we present to you, that it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for anybody up here. Nobody likes it, but whatever comes out of this, hopefully comes out of this, it was done only because we thought it was in the best interest of the town, and it's the only reason we pushed whatever that might be forward and out to the town for its consideration. It's not a betrayal. It's not anything like that. Everybody still up here feels the way they feel, all right? But we got a job to do because you elected us to do it, and that's to represent you and represent the town's best interest. And I think that's what everybody up here is, resigned themselves to in this process, and that we're, looking for the lesser of evils. But, we do need the residents to at least have an open mind to what we're doing and what we might present to you, because whatever it is we come up with, it's what we felt we had to do and had to present to you to keep us from having much, much, much worse potential outcomes. Whether it's funding, whether it's where a zone might go, all those things. They all have to be factored in now, and I think that's where we are and why we're at this point. Okay?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes,
I just wanted to add, just so the residents are aware, to date, just so some numbers that I know I've been asked what we've not been eligible for. To date, a little over $1.7 million that we've been told that do not apply for the grant, or we've been denied. Again, I was probably one of the leaders that is was against it and still is against it. It's not easy to sit here and say that we're changing our mind. We're not changing our mind. We're trying to work within the guidelines so we can continue to restore these grants. To date, we've filed the suit to get our unfunded mandate ruling. We were granted that. It was granted that it is an unfunded mandate. There's been rulings that, specifically I was adamant that the state is violating the town's right, that the legislative body in this town is town meeting, and town meeting spoke. But the state has ruled on that they can overrule town meeting. So again, to date, $1.7 million that we've been ineligible for, and the unfunded mandate has been granted, hasn't helped us much. SJC ruled that that really is not relevant here. So again, we're not caving, we're not rolling over, we're not giving up the fight, because at the end of the day, it's about the residents, and it's what's best for the residents. So hopefully, we can come up with something. And at the end of the day, as everyone here said, the residents are going to speak. And at that point, if the residents come back and vote at town meeting, and ultimately it's no, then I will stand there and support the residents, because we are elected by the residents. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
If I may, so I agree with most of what was just said. I have a slightly different view. I think it's time, unfortunately, and this may be unpopular, but we've got to take our medicine. So normally, town meeting is the end-all be-all. They have the say. The state has proven that this is not the case in this situation. So if we go to town meeting and it's voted down again, I'm going to continue to repeat, because I want to make sure everyone understands the consequences. We are back dealing with all of those negative things that were just mentioned over the last 20 minutes. So it's not we go to town meeting, we vote it down, we won. We are just back in danger. So I will continue to repeat that, because I want to make sure everyone understands it. But this is a very rare occasion where town meeting is not the end-all be-all. They are essentially asking us to give them the nod on what they're looking for. If that does not happen, we are back in a bad spot.
Mr. Chairman.
And Mr.
I have a thought as far as something else that's been going on in town. I don't know if it's exactly the same situation, but I know we've had multiple people appear before our board, and certainly pretty much everywhere I go in town, people ask, what can you do on the planning board about the battery site going in over by Emerald Court? And we tell them, there's nothing we can do, right? We have no jurisdiction over it whatsoever. That battery site is going wherever those stakeholders and those powers that be decide to do. And we, the residents, especially the residents of Emerald Court, have no real say in whether that project goes through. I would hate a year from now to have our planning board, people coming before us over and over, what can we do about this 1,200 unit development that we hate? This is us now doing something for you, which is to stave off a situation where you don't have a say, you don't have a voice. So here we are now, work with us now, and let your voices be heard. Don't wait until it's out of our control like the battery situation is. Thank you.
All right, and as I mentioned, my perspective is, if it comes back to exactly what we were voting for before, my vote is no. It's still no. It's just, I didn't like the proposal. I don't like the proposal. I know what would happen with the traffic, and I think that's what the residents came. They came forward and said, 1,200 units is insane for what we're looking for, and especially saying because it's an MBTA communities, and 1,200 units in one area would be crazy. So the only thing that we can try to do is to try to see if some of these existing developments, And if they come back and the state says no, that they're not willing to count some of the things that we've built over the last couple of years, then that's a whole different ballgame. But if we try to at least go and try to negotiate to say, we built a number of developments over the last couple of years, can you knock that number down, that instead of talking about 1,200 units, we're talking, everybody who lives in this town knows housing's going to be built. It doesn't make a difference. In MBTA communities, every single year, there's 2 or 3 developments that get built in this town. So they're going to be built because people want to live here. It's a beautiful community to live in. Their ruling of jamming that much in, I thought it was a horrible plan. And trying to get that many people in a specific area, and the idea that they could try to get it past everybody saying you just have to zone it, you don't have to build it. Nobody in this town is dumb. They understand if you zone it, somebody's going to try to come in and build it. So if we can find a way to try to go back to the state and say, hey, listen, we built 300 units here, we built 250 units here, we built 56 units here over the last couple of years. Can we count those numbers to that? And now we're looking at an area that's much smaller. And if they come back and say no, hey, at least we made the effort. We sat here in this room, we tried to make an effort to make it something that the residents could at least knock the numbers down for us. We go to town meeting, they say no, and then all of a sudden, a year from now, they come in and they build something. We're not going to be sitting here saying, hey, listen, we didn't have a vote, or we didn't at least have a say in it. That's what we're trying to figure out. Do you want to have another say? Do you want to have another vote on this? Some people may say, I already voted. Well, then, the worst thing that we do is if we find something, we go back to town meeting and you vote no again. But I don't want to also put blinders on and say, hey, listen, let's make an effort to count some of the stuff that we've already built and try to knock down those numbers. And if they say no, then okay, we all go back and we say, you know what, you're not willing to negotiate in good faith, and you're going to do what you're going to do, whatever it may be. That's going to be a factor for me. If they're willing to work with us, then you know what, I'm always willing to work with somebody. But it's, we have to make an effort to at least have the residents have a voice. If you're adamant against it, you're adamant against it. But if you find that, like the state says, some of these developments count, that may change your perspective. And, we're going to have a lot of people talking about funding, grants, roadway improvements. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to come forward, and there's going to be a lot of people upset about losing those different things. So I want to have your voice heard either way. And that's the reason we're having this meeting. We're not here to try to say, this is what we're trying to, the state is already dictating to everybody. We're not here to dictate to anybody. We're just trying to come up with some answers to find out if the town is even interested in looking at another proposal. And that's why I think we're here tonight.
So can I maybe move this to that next stage? But
Yeah.
Ms. Lauder, can you just remind me, it's 12, what? What's the number, 12?
1214.
1214, all right. So I just think that maybe one of the things, because we're talking about, but we're doing it in sort of a 10,000 foot view. When we're talking about trying to get some credit, does anybody have any sort of ideas of, what would be, what's the drop dead number or something like that? I mean, we'd love them to tell us 1,200, obviously, but we're not going to get to 1,200, obviously, right? So, where is palatable, or where's the cutoff for each person, obviously, on some credit? Is a credit, is 100 enough? Is that too low? And that if it's not more than that, forget it. And so we got to start figuring out what that is. Because in the ether of what we're doing right now, that's not going to help, because if we send, the planning department off to try to come up with a proposal, that's not really a marching order of, something that we can really put together. And we don't have a lot of time, so that's why I figure maybe what are we thinking a palatable credit is? Obviously we want as much as possible, but, I guess, I don't know. Once we say it here, I guess that it puts us in a tough spot, but I understand, but, how long can we hide it is, I guess, you know what I mean? What's workable in terms of the number coming down? And if we can't get to that, at least, then, we might be at a no-go. and then we're just going to wait it out and see what happens, you know, and I don't know where everybody is on that, but I feel like we can't get that piece, picking a zone and picking an area and all that is
Mr.
pointless.
Chairman, I think that's going to end up being more of a day two thing, because, I mean, you know, first we have to find out if the court or the state is going to allow us to do that. You know what I mean? And then we can come up with some numbers. They might just say no, you know, or we don't know what they're going to say. But, you know, I mean, I think it's definitely a good idea, and I think if we put our heads together, we can get a good proposal on that. But then let's just take the first step and see if we can get approval on that. And then, you know, and then let's say, okay, yeah, let's see if we can shave 300 or 400 units off of that 1,214 number. You know, and then, but let's take step one here first.
So then what I would say is, but we have, you know, we're going to ask, in this case, the planning department, I suspect, which means Ms. Louder, to do something here. But I'm a little unclear what we're asking Ms. Louder to do. That's what I'm saying. So what, and I guess I can ask Ms. Louder if it's all right. Just what's being described, how does that, do you see how that you might be able to pursue that? Or if you need more information than what's been given so far, before you could even try to pursue that? Like when you go to the state, because in this case, as they pointed out, this is the Livable Communities Department that we're going to have to deal with first. That's separate from the lawsuit part. If we want to try and go this path, that's who's going to have to sign off on any kind of credit we might get. That's where that's going to happen. That's Ms. Louder, basically, you know, having those conversations. But right now, it's a little fuzzy, and I don't know what you might need.
If I may, so I think there's actually two kind of angles at coming at the same problem. It's been mentioned about using the parcels that are already existing and then counting those units and then asking for credits. Both, I think, may be viable options, but I think we come back to that same, what is the line we're looking for, right? Because there's two ways to kind of get to that, whether we count the parcel or if we're just saying, can we have
I guess what I mean is, if you go to the department and say, we're trying to do this, what the boards are saying is, we're looking for some credit for some of the things we've built. Can you give us some parameters? How old could the project be? Okay, if it's more than a year old, we're not going to count it. Okay, now we've narrowed it down. What's been built in the last year? 2 years, whatever that number is. Do we think we could get those kind of answers out of them without asking for any specific parcels yet, or giving them all these parcels and saying, sift through this and come back and tell us how many you'll credit us for? I feel like the first thing might be more likely, and say, give us some parameters. Is there something here that you think you can give us credit for? If so, what might it be? And then we can find the pieces that might fit, that we could say, okay, we did this project, it was 50 units. This project was 100 units. All right, we're at $150 because they meet their feelings on this. And then we can work to that and see what number we can get to. Is that something you think they might do, or do we need more? That's what I'm trying to figure out. You've dealt with them, we haven't. I mean, this is
Right. So this would be a deviation from the regulations, one part of the regulations, which is having that prescribed district capacity. That's one piece of the puzzle. So I have not spoken to them about that, so I could not tell you one way or the other whether they would entertain it. But I do also want to be clear that that is just one piece of it. Just because the 1214 gets knocked down in theory, it does not then necessarily mean that we also get less acres to have to. So that it's just multiple pieces of the regulation. So I'm just wanting to making sure that that's understood as well. But I can certainly ask. I have not asked that question.
I mean, I feel like there was at least one.
Can I just
wanna
jump
say
in for
it's
a
like
second?
Quincy or somebody down on the South Shore. I thought they got some kind of a credit for something. I thought they were the only ones, but I could be wrong. There was something weird about it.
Rentham was trying to do that, and they got, I thought they.
No, but I thought somebody, but I'm just saying, if it's a no-go right off the bat, we can stop this entire thing, because then we're not going to be able to get to somewhere. But if they understand that we're trying to do something, but we need some guidance on what might be palatable to them to draw our number down, what can we then put together to present?
Right.
You know, and if we can't, if they're like, well, look, we're not doing the work for you, send us some stuff, and we'll tell you yes or no. They might just tell us no right off the bat, and we're done, right?
I think
If they
that,
give us
I
an
think that
option-
that's what they're going to do. I think it's the latter. So I think we should approach it in the reverse. What we should do is you say, for example, and you have a district already that you looked at when you did this, District B. And in that district, there are 4 developments that for all intents and purposes won't be further developed. You got Jones Farm, Boston Place, Patrick Road, Villa Roma Drive. Those will not be developed, but they're all part of this one parcel. You could, in theory, and I know Mr. Ryder brought this up, you could take one of these districts, make it a little smaller, and then throw in a few parcels that are bigger than 5 acres that are fully developed, and not directly ask them to, excuse it, but in theory, then, in their desire to reach an amicable conclusion, maybe they'll allow that. I don't know whether they will or not, but I think if we go out and directly say, we want you to change the rules for us, I don't think that's going to fly. I don't think that's going to fly.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I think we do have to approach it in that manner, but we have to look, I mean, and it's a simple, if there's a discussion with the housing livable communities, and they come right out and say, we're not allowing you to use any of your pre-existing units. We all know, right? I'll tell you right now, if they come back and they say no, my answer is no, and I'm going to stand with the residents. But if they come back and they say, well, you can go back 3 years, 4 years, 2 years, then I think that the board has to sit here and make that decision. Is that number palatable to be able to come up with something? Again, we don't know if they say no, they answered the question for us. They've asked us that they want to do this amicably. The state wants us to do this amicably. We're trying to do this amicably and try to come up with a way to not have to build 1,214 new units. Because if they can turn around and say, you have to do that, that's the law and that's it, I'll tell you right now, my vote's no. That's not working together. That's what they wanted. That's part of the lawsuit. They came back and said, we want you to work and try and come up with something. So that's why we're coming up with something, asking to use those existing units. And if they say no, very simple. Thank you, we tried. We're standing with our residents.
So to kind of,
I'll stand with the residents.
to kind of split the baby on this, so again, I think we're dealing with this like it's a normal project. Like, we're talking about having a meeting again next week, right? So we might be able to ask a few questions, but I think if we can come to whatever is palatable for this group and say, okay, we're looking back, 5 years, and we're looking at parcels that would fall into this. We're looking at any parcel developed in Tewksbury in the past 5 years that is over 5 acres, and then we just give that as marching orders to the planning department. We're not waiting months. This isn't a long process, right? Then we propose that in our plan. So we're getting the asks that are coming out of this discussion, and we're still moving the ball forward where we're getting something out, and they might not take our first pass. They might come back with feedback. But I do agree that asking direct questions is probably going to be less efficacious than proposing something and letting them punch holes in it.
Yeah, I agree. We go back to 5 years. I'll agree with you there. We go back 5 years, look at what was built in the last 5 years, provide that information, provide the zones, present that to the state, and let them come back with feedback. It very well could come back and the answer is no, we're not allowing this, or we're going to allow X number. Then we have to sit down and come up with that number that Mr. Johnson said, what is okay with this board to bring something back. And if the number is 100, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with 200. So that's a question we don't know. That we're asking that question, and until we get some sort of feedback, that in my opinion, we asked 5 years. We go back from 2020 when they proposed this. Okay, Tewksbury's built X number of units in these zones within the last 5 years. We want to count these towards our 1,214 units, and then we go from there.
So that's a deviation from what I was proposing, which was we include it in a plan, right? So if we say, we give that order to staff and they go back and they look at what parcels fall into that, they incorporate those into the plan that we're going to present to the state. So if there's 10 projects in the past 5 years that are over 5 acres, we include those, we send that to them as part of our greater plan, but I think it would be, we know they're going to say no. If we just pull all the parcels and send it to them, that's going to be a no. That's not going to meet all of the other requirements that fall into the 25-acre anchor parcel and all the other requirements that go into this. So I think we do need to put an honest effort into presenting something that may be entertained, but we can incorporate that 5-year look back with 5-acre parcels.
Can I just ask for a clarification? Because now the entire thing has got me a little confused in this. A reduction in the number, the 1,214 number, that affects density, correct? On what can fit on whatever gets built on.
Correct.
You know, and I'm really leery of saying this out loud. You know, I know Mr. Holland already said it out loud. I want to use code wording for this, but complying with this by using more places where it is incredibly unlikely, because something's already there, to just simply meet the requirements, because the only way to build something would be to destroy what's already there. Wouldn't that just be simpler? I mean, I know we need to do a little more work than we left, but we put it all in one place. But you need a 25-acre anchor. We still need that even if we come with some kind of credit. What I'm saying is you just pointed out a whole bunch of places that already got built out. And if they are eligible pieces, wouldn't it be simpler for us to spread the rest of it around onto places that would be, I don't know what I'm looking for, but it would be counterproductive if, say, a housing development were already there, to knock it down to build a housing development. So rather than going through this exercise of trying to get the number down, we don't have to worry about the density as much, because we're still going to have to do the 25. And I'm not opposed to Mr. Ryder's suggestion of where we might want to look to putting that. Because we're going to need the anchor piece no matter what. Even if you change this number and somehow get credits, you're still going to need that anchor piece. So the most important thing to us is to figure out where's the right place to put the anchor piece. You know, that one you got to probably have to, you know, leave a little wiggle room in it being, you know, you get stick it on the swamp. You know what I mean? But you got to be able to figure out, give something with, you know, maybe something, but it might be the best place for it because it does at least pain if anything does happen. But it isn't a guarantee that it's going to happen. But then the rest of it kind of gets spread around to the areas where, you know, it isn't even in the remote reasonableness for someone to think that you're going to knock down what was already there to build it out, because it's already there. So if you're talking about Jones Farm, for an example, just because you used it, you know, or a couple of, and you're putting those together, and that's, you know, I don't know what Jones Farm is in terms of size.
96 units.
No, I mean acreage, that area.
Look it up.
But what I'm saying is, if you're taking something like that, and that's one of your pieces, you're going to knock down Jones Farm to build Jones Farm? No,
but
probably not.
But I'm concerned with that in not asking for the number of units, because if we say the Jones Farm parcel, and then they say, okay, it wasn't that density, now that opens them up to increased density on the property. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
you turn around and you're just opening up that can of worm to create additional density on that parcel.
Right.
I'm
But
looking at it
remember-
and saying,
but
no, we built this.
But do remember that, and we had this conversation before, just because they can, doesn't mean they get to, which means we still go through the whole process of what you're doing goes through the regular process of us looking at it and saying, are you having problems with infrastructure? Because we had this conversation before. Our board is not prevented from asking for those things if something like that comes up. We can still insist on those things, and if the developer cannot accommodate dealing with those infrastructure problems, our board can still deny that project. Their only recourse at that point is to try and sue about it, but they don't just get it. This isn't like a 40B where we just say no and then the state goes like that. They got to go through the legal process of suing on something like that. So jamming more stuff in on an area that's already built out like that would be more difficult than just saying, oh, okay, we'll stick some more stuff over here in the corner. So that's why I'm saying, I'm not saying we don't still, maybe this credit thing might, what I'm saying is, we might have an easier path of just doing this if we're just a little more creative, because the last time we put it all kind of in one place. That really didn't go well.
Yeah,
So I understand
I just
why.
get concerned with that. You're just using Jones Farm as a example. They could turn around and knock down their rentals. You could knock down every one of those garages and come back and say, well, we want to put more units in there.
Well, no, because they're already part of the original approval. You can't just take them
Not
away.
necessarily. We could come back and say that if the density, if we're asking the state to allow this parcel based upon the density, not just that we built it and these are the number of units, then they could turn around and look at knocking down or existing garages and putting up more units.
But they'd be violating the permit that was issued
No,
before.
they would have to come back, but again, now they come back with new zoning on that parcel that says now that is density can go to the maximum capacity. And if they met all those guidelines with the infrastructure and all those things, then what does the planning board have, what authority does the planning board to turn around and say, well, you're knocking a garage down and you want to put up units? Or they could turn around and.
Because you're changing what was there in the
But it
approved
still could
permit.
go, I understand, but you could go back for an amendment on that permit and say, well, I just want to put garages.
But what you're
keep the
describing
garages
requires
and
the
put
planning
houses.
board to first say, we're going to let you amend your permit, and then authorize you to build the next thing.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't, I'm
think-
not going to be here
no, I
forever.
just
I've been
think-
on here a
I
long
think that
time,
gets
but I
muddied.
mean, I
think
have
we
a hard
muddy the
time
waters
envisioning
there.
that. That's what I'm
I
saying.
just, my opinion, I think we muddy the waters there. I think, yes, I don't disagree, we need an anchor parcel. We need to come up with that, but I look at not changing the density in those existing parcels. Just use the existing parcel and then find the anchor parcel. I don't want to go in and say, well, we've done this and use this parcel, this parcel, this parcel, and we want to make that the MBTA
Wait,
zone.
Let's ask that
density.
question, though. I mean, I'm not trying to make more work for you, Ms. Potter, I'm really not. But you're probably the other person that can do this. What parcels are there where we may already have that level of density? There's nothing that has 15 per acre?
I don't think so. Give me a second.
Allow me 2 minutes to look at it. Hold on a second.
While you're looking that up, you know, we brought up Bedford again. You want to go?
Just so while she's looking up the information, I mean, not to be playing devil's advocate here, but this law was put in place to add units. If we can add the units we've already built, that's great. And if we can incorporate the Heathbrook Plaza into that plan, because, hey, listen, we got these units, and we're going to add another additional 140 units, say, down at Heathbrook Plaza, and that's going to be a big area of ours, and suppose we go up into Ames Pond, because, I'm only mentioning Ames Pond, because that's going to be the less traffic-wise for the town of Tewksbury, and it's going to affect Andover more than anybody in this location. And that whole parcel up there, which is probably 20-plus acres, could be used in this process as well. And again, it's not going to affect Tewksbury that much. It may affect us in some small ways, but not traffic-wise. Because I vision most of the traffic being in the Andover area and 495 and not in downtown Tewksbury. So, I mean,
Mr. Fidalia knows how much I love to find ways to irritate the town that shall not be named.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, I mean, whether the Ames Pond, but I didn't want to get away from Mr. Ryder's thought from before on, you know, the piece that he was looking at as potentially being the
I mean,
anchor.
again, I'll talk, I think, you know, full transparency, I think Clark Road, you know, the infrastructure's there. It is still in Tewksbury. It's to the, you know, south side of 495 with minimal impact to traffic that is going to hit the center of town. I think that's the key area that we focus on for the large zone. And if we can focus on that and then get those other units, the other properties as numbers that were built, then I think we're I can support that. I mean, I just can't, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, and Vin and I talked, Ames Pond, I live on North Street. Traffic is, I can't get out of my driveway at 5 o'clock at night. It's 15 minutes to pull out of the driveway. And if there's an accident, I can tell you if there's an accident on 495, because everyone's ways, whether it's 7:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock at night, I see 250 cars coming down North Street. I think the least impact to the residents from a traffic perspective and an infrastructure perspective is Clark Road. You know, just my
I
opinion.
put that up. Clark Road, if you exclude Stadium Plaza, is 100 and, I think it's 105 acres.
I wouldn't say Stadium Plaza, I would say the opposite
I
side.
was saying if you exclude
Okay, sorry, John.
exclude Stadium Plaza, it's 105 acres. But if you look at what's developable, and this is very rudimentary because I just did it in the GIS map, and I just carved out everything that was away from the wetlands, and there's roughly 44 acres of upland in that area.
And we zone 25 of that. That's the large contiguous 25-acre parcel. And if we can get the credit for those others, and it's accepted, I can
But
get
like Ms.
behind
Lauder said, there's two pieces of that, though. The credit is about density. We still have to come up with the other 25 acres. It
No.
doesn't get us out of the other,
No,
get to the
if we
50.
use those,
Am I wrong?
no, if we use 5-acre parcels, total is 50.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
25
okay, so 5 more, though. Yeah.
Five more parcels, and I'm talking about using 5 of the existing built that are on 5 acres or more, using those as, those other 5, and then a 25-acre contiguous parcel. So using the 25 existing acres that are separated within the town, and then 25 acres on Clark Road, that is, you know, hopefully that's something that is acceptable.
So was there any?
Two
There
that
were
I'm
two.
aware of. 2230 Main Street and Ames.
Okay. How many acres, ballparking it, with those two if you did them?
So Ames is a total acreage of 52, but there's significant resource areas, so I don't know what that number would be once you remove the eligible acreage. I've estimated about half, but again, I would need to actually have it go through the compliance model to know.
So theoretically, and I'm not suggesting you do it, but theoretically, if you use that as the other 25, you could actually do it without ever having to ask for a credit because they are already at that number of 15. There's nothing to knock down and add. It'd be 1 for 1. If you knock something down, you could only add 1. If you knock 2 down, you can only add 2. You wouldn't be adding anything, actually. You'd be exactly where you were before. So I'm not saying do that necessarily, but there's 2 pieces of property. Do you have any idea what the other one is, ballpark?
2230 Main Street, but it's 1.6 acres.
Okay, that was bad. We don't want that one.
Too small.
Okay. But, you know, you don't even have to do all of Ames Pond necessarily. You could do a part of it, not Ames, it's really the lodge, right? We're talking about-
Correct.
I'm sorry, just so people don't get confused because we just
Yeah.
talked about the other one. But if you're talking about Ames Pond, the lodge area, you can't. If you use that as a good portion of this, you can't do it. You can't, you're already at max. You maxed out the 15. So we can go begging for, credits, that's fine, we can do it. What I'm saying is, we could get around that if we're just creative with this, and we could do it all on our own, and we don't have to ask anybody for anything. And we do exactly what Mr. Holland said, only I'm not going to say the word, again, out loud. And we make it compliant, and we send it in, and we could be done with this entire thing much, much simpler.
And-
If we're just a little,
If that met the not being buildable, additional units being built on it, and it met the guidelines and not additional units being built, and if we looked at a Clark Road, you use those 2.
so I'll say it right
Again,
now.
I just look at,
I agree with Mr.
Impact.
Ryder, and if this is workable, I would ask the rest of the people here if they could think about getting behind that, because I feel like we could move this process forward with Ms. Lauder much quicker, and she's going to have to confirm that that really does what we're
yeah, just want to make sure it meets the density, and no additional, again,
I know, yeah, that,
you
you
know.
understand what everybody's saying, is that if that piece is one of them, and it's a 1 for 1.
A 1
You
for
want to
1.
knock it down, all you can put back is
You
what
can
you
only
had
put the
there
same thing
before.
back. It's existing, we use it, and then we look at
Yeah, and another point too, I think, the selling point on this is a way to spread the pain too. because we're not putting all this in one place. You know, we got some things over here, we got some things over there, so no one place is getting, you know, everything landing on them, which I think freaks people out. Because even when we discussed the Heathbrook, you know, I'm saying you're not going to get 1,200. You think you will. That's fine. You know, we disagreed on that, but we don't have to worry about that anymore because it's not all going in one place. You know what I mean? So I feel like we can do what some other communities have done and got this off their plate and get ourselves into compliance and get our money start coming in again and get out from this lawsuit and all those things in a much simpler way without asking permission from one department and then seeing if the AG's fine with it and everything else. I think there's a path forward here that I think will get all of us something we can work with and sell to, you know, the residents as, you know, this is our best deal, and this keeps us way down in terms of, you know, what could even potentially happen if anything happened. We're not putting it all in one place. We're doing what the state's asking us to do and be done with this thing. So
If the numbers worked and there was the option, you know, from me speaking me only, if there was an option that we could use that, a 1-for-1, and no additional units being built there, I could get behind that. That's something if I could look at. And
When that's the rest?
I think this is another, again, if that's something that it's already built to that density, it meets the 25 acres, and we only have to do one other zone of 25 acres, you know, we could, to the residents, we could say, this is already built. Nothing is changing there, nothing. If they want to change something and they knock down a building of 10 units, they can only put up a building of 10 units. That would be something that the residents, I believe, could understand. And then if we looked at another zone, far away from, you know, a minimal traffic impact, minimal impact on our infrastructure, that's something we, you know, I can look at. Again, we're talking a lot of numbers and a lot of information. You know, I think everyone would really like to see it on paper and see.
But that's internal, we could probably start running that now, right? We don't have to
Gives me
ask any.
something to start with.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the one caveat, I like where we're going, but with the Clark Road piece, so there is potential, right? We have the one anchor piece, which has less likelihood, especially with the one-to-one that Mr. Ryder mentioned, if the density matches up. But this Clark Road piece is potentially developable. So.
Well, I do think you're going to have a hard time if you send nothing to the state that could possibly happen. That's tough.
Well, I think no matter what, you mean,
But
the
this
Clark
is
Road,
bigger
20
than just 25.
right, I don't think you'd have to do the whole
Right.
30-something acres, but if you did 25 over there,
Yeah.
But my only thing is we're leaving units on the table and we can double dip on a project we know is already happening.
well, and I think we look at this, we look at if the lodge is acceptable, then we also ask about those other units, that other parcels that have been built. Can we use this right here? Can we?
I was talking about the Heathbrook Plaza,
Heathbrook.
because like that's a double
I'm
dip.
going to be honest, and residents already said they don't want it there. I'm not supporting a density on that parcel. I'm not going to support that. I
So
will support,
by that logic, we're saying, we're not just taking the 1214 potential, we're okay with the fact that there's essentially almost another 200 units on top of that for overall units, because we know that almost 200 units are already going there.
Going where?
On the Heathbrook?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I thought it was 180
140,
something.
140.
Oh, I'm sorry.
140.
That's
I
the
haven't looked at those numbers in
frozen
a few
zone.
years.
That's the frozen zoning at 140.
Yeah.
But if we zone that, that changes. So I look at,
So I get Mr. Ryder's point. Like, we're maxing out at 140, that's fine. If nobody, and then that's as far as anybody, and that's if we get to 140. You know, if there aren't other reason to cut that down. But going any higher than 140 is basically what you're saying, that's a problem.
that's a problem.
Okay,
Again-
that's fair.
Again,
I can understand.
by right,
Yeah, I get
I'm
it.
all for developing,
I get it.
develop their parcel.
So it's not so much how many units might end up in the town overall. We're just saying that any more than that is going to be too much pain in the Heathbrook Plaza area, fine. I can,
I apologize, I was projecting, because I was looking at
For clarification.
One second, if I may. So I was looking at the overall number was a big point. So I apologize for checking that.
So sort of marching orders kind of thing. It sounds like you want us to look at, as an anchor, the Clark Road, right? And then also to take these two parcels you mentioned that are basically maxed out can't be done. But just given that there might be some issues with eligibility I would imagine that we would also look at, like, if it's not an exact one-for-one, if it's got 96 units on it, and if it was rezoned, it'd have, 105. I mean, is that something,
Pretty close.
as long as it's close, right?
Again, you're gonna look at, developability to say, hey, I'm not gonna knock down a
Right.
99
So
parcel unit.
my
to put
point
up
is,
100 and-
I guess my point is, so if we have to look at other places to decide to get, but I know what you want, and I just want to be sure that you're okay.
That's only going to happen if that large piece has too many unqualified pieces to it to
Yeah.
knock it down below 25. You're talking about, what'd you say, 50? How big is that whole thing?
52 in gross acres.
So you're talking about, that means they got to lose half of that to ineligibility for us not to be using 25 there alone. If it happens, fine, you got another 1.5 million in that other one, right?
Which,
The one you said that was, the density was high enough. Because we had,
it's 1.67 acres.
but what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
that's another piece that you could add in if you had to, because it doesn't have to be contiguous, it's just that 25 out at Clark Road.
5 have to be contiguous.
5.
So
Oh.
the 1.67 wouldn't be able to stand by itself.
Okay, never mind, never
Blocks of
mind.
5
Okay.
acres. a
Forget that then, I
Anchor of
apologize.
25, and then
And-
5 acre
Right,
blocks.
once the 25 acre piece is achieved, no other section can be smaller than
Well,
So I think if I'm understanding what our conversation is, then is the first thing is figure out how much of the lodge is eligible. If at least 25 of it is eligible, we're done. 25 of it's going there, right? The other 25 is going down to Clark Road in some configuration of what's available, whatever makes sense. We can talk about a little bit, well, but generally, we're talking about that area if everybody's on board. And then we're kind of done. We've solved this problem, now it's time to start selling it. But I think it solves everybody's biggest concern, which is we don't have to ask for anything in terms of asking for credit for things we've already done. This is a project that's so old, we wouldn't have had credit for it under that 5-year plan anyways. It's much older than that.
Oh, yeah.
But it's going to meet the law's requirement. And I'm all for turning this thing around on them. They're asking for compliance. We potentially about to hand it to them. So, and be done with this thing.
Again, I'm a visual person, I'd like to say, I think everyone.
I agree.
I think everyone else,
But does it feel right to give those instructions to see if you can pull it
I think at
together?
this point, if we get, the more information we can get back, and again, I'm not trying to, take control of it, but I think trying to get as much information back so we can all all feel comfortable in the decision that we make.
I know we're going around and like we're having a conversation like we know what they're going to say. I hate that. I hate the fact that we're saying we know what they're going to say. They're looking to get everybody in compliance. We're asking for things, the worst things they can do is say no. How quickly are they going to say no? If they say no, they say no, but at least, like we were talking about another community, maybe they gave something to another community that they already did. Why wouldn't we be asking for it? If we send it in and they say, no, we've already brought this up and we brought it out of the community, somebody else already brought it forward, it's already some past practice, we're going to say no.
But my only thing is
Yeah,
that,
but-
why ask for permission for something if we don't have to?
But then we go back, why do we, like I said, we can ask for permission and then we can still submit the same exact parcel. Why is it now all of a sudden, why all of a sudden is it not part of the thing that we can add?
The only caution I would give with that is if you lower the number of units, you're probably going to increase the density. So why would you bother?
But we're coming up with these parcels that we already may have. If we're looking at, like you're trying to find like, well, this one may be the one that we're a little bit concerned about. Maybe there's something like you mentioned, like there's garages there and maybe or maybe there's something that they're going to be looking for something here and can it be developed? If you knock the numbers down a little bit, I'm always willing to ask for something. If somebody says no, they say no. But it doesn't hurt us. Like, I hate finding out that, if another community got it And I'm sitting here in like 2 years and I find out that another community asked for something and they got it. And I'm like, I'm like, why didn't we had this discussion? Why didn't we ask?
Can I
for it?
suggest
You know?
a dual path then?
Yeah.
Like, let's go forward with what we just described a few minutes ago and see if it works. If if the size, the
Yeah.
eligible pots, we can still then ask can we get some credit and get this knocked down? They say no, we've got the
Yeah.
backup plan of, we've got something in line anyways. But you can still ask, that's fine, I don't have a problem, but that's a dual path. We're moving
And we'll
towards
try to find
one
out
version.
what community actually got it.
Yeah, like I said, I might be making that up. I just feel like there was something that someone finally gave in after they got some, I don't know, maybe it was Milton, I don't know. Somebody changed their mind, and I thought there was some agreement of something would count. But I could be wrong. But either way, there's nothing hurt in asking. But I think we may have solved the problem in the alternative if they say no. We don't have to stop, is what I'm saying. Like, before we thought, if they say no, we're done. We have an option where we might be able to go forward and just simply have a compliance that is compliant and, it solves that
It's
problem.
pre-existing.
Yeah.
Again, and then that's literally pre-existing, not able to, no additional units on the site, pre-existing. If we can take that, it's something we can look at.
You can pull your guys, but I mean,
We're not building
for
it.
my folks, does that sound right
On
to
behalf of the
everybody?
planning board, I'd like to say, my plan A is, let's figure out how much of the Ames Pond Lodge, how much of our quota or requirements that would satisfy in terms of acreage and number of units. Can we fit the rest of it at Clark Road? And what would that do at Clark Road? What would that look like? And then if for some reason Clark Road doesn't have enough capacity to satisfy the remainder of our requirements without asking for credits or anything else, then maybe we look at some other options, whether it's Jones Farm Road or 2230, something like that. I mean, if we're off by 30 units and we need to throw in an extra acre and a half, can we kind of throw that in there and say, hey, listen, we're so close, we've got this. But honestly, I can't imagine the state in this particular circumstance. I don't think they gave anything to anybody. I think maybe they horse traded some stuff, or maybe somebody was able to demonstrate enough and then gave them something else that then, got them a little bit of relief from the strict requirement. Maybe they got to preserve the number of units, but they spread it out over more acres, or maybe they gave them more acres of developable land with more units, but at a lesser density. I don't think anybody escaped this with anything less than the total requirement. They might have been able to just,
I could
to just
misremember.
finagle it into the parcel they had, because the parcel didn't support it, completely, but they still were able to meet the intent enough. But I don't think anybody gave anybody, I don't think the state gave anybody anything. The state is in the process right now of taking away as much as possible from whoever they can in quite a punitive fashion. I don't think the state is looking to give anybody anything, and I think that, unless we have facts showing otherwise, again, that's why my plan A is what I just outlined. And I hope I would love it that if that actually worked, that, as we just heard multiple times, like, stamp it, sign it, put it in front of town meeting, and let's get this nasty business behind us.
All right, we've been here long enough, I think. I'm going to open it up to my,
For real, actually. Apparently I haven't been here long.
no, but I'm going to open up to my board and just see if, to take just a consensus, if this is something that they would like to move forward. Mr. Ryder?
Yeah, I think we have to explore, I think it's worth exploring, and then we can make that decision. I don't think anyone wants to sit up here tonight and say, I'm going to support this without having the proper information.
Mr. Mackey?
So the one question I would have is, if what was just discussed actually works. So where the math works, where we use the lodge and we use a piece of this, and we were to, that meets the requirement, and we put that forward. Is that something that the rest of the board would support? I guess is my question, because I think we're really close, and I think we might have cracked it here. But if we're going to start looking for, my fear would be, we get approval on this, and then we go back and try to squeeze more, because we're not, unfortunately, negotiating from a position of power here. So I think as as few questions, as few extra sets of eyes, as little attention as we can get on this and just send it, get the nod and move forward is the best path, personally.
Mr. Holland?
I agree with Mr. Mackey. Doing something is better than what we're not doing. No. So I think we should move forward, Ms. Lauda, developing the proposed plan.
Yeah, and bring that proposed plan back to us at, at a meeting we give some time, send it out to both boards, be able to review it, look at it, really digest it, and understand what it is. Because again, at the end of the day, that would be a really big hurdle if we could get over and say, we already have a 25-acre parcel that's built out, zoned properly, checks all the boxes, cannot be built on. Now we just have to find this other one that we need to fit within the compliance guidelines, then we can all digest that information.
So given how expeditiously we need to move, I would have a question through to town staff for, with what was just discussed, how long would be needed to put together something for us to review, right? Because there is still the whole follow-on process of working with EOHLC and the AG's office, all that follow-on needs to happen. And if we're looking at hopefully having a meeting as soon as that's ready, what do we think that would take? Ballpark is fine.
So going through NIMCOG, which is the first thing we'd have to do.
Yep.
And then having a conversation with HLC about this. I would say, it's hard to say, but I would say 2 weeks
Do
at a
we
minimum.
need, are we going to that point yet? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I think we
have to.
need the information back from Alex yet on the parcel before we can say, yes, we want you to take this to, housing and living communities and NIMCOG. I think we have to have that
I think
information
we
back.
should do the.
We need NIMCOG.
We do, yeah, I think we need to do the NIMCOG.
At least that. You don't have to give it to
Or at
living
least if you
community.
work that, but get us the information back so we can start to look at that.
NIMCOG is not an approving authority in this.
They're just
They're-
review,
They
yeah.
help us do the modeling because.
And that's fine. If we can, work that simultaneously and get that information back to us, then we can digest that and everyone has an opportunity to review.
To that point, I think 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay.
Just because we are relying on other folks' staff and availability. And, I think that they're going to be willing to work with us, but they can't drop everything else they're working on to just do this in a day, so.
No, absolutely. So yeah, the impetus behind that was I'm trying to figure out how we back into our next meeting and what the next step is. So I'm glad we clarified that it would not be sending it to EOHLC. We do need to send it to NIMCOG. So that's what I'm trying to kind of,
So if we look at 2 weeks out, maybe we can probably get some information prior to that, what she's going to send over. We can review that. And while, running parallel paths, she's running that information with NIMCOG. We can review it. We can, really hone in on the 25 acres over at Clark Road, work that, then we can review that. Again, I hope, again, for me, I just want to be able to digest that information.
absolutely.
So do you want to shoot for April 8th, which is 2 weeks from today?
Well, I want to make sure that, like I said, we have an idea, we have a plan. Seems like everybody's on the same page. I just want to make sure that we have, we're going to have another meeting. I'm expecting residents to be here. Somebody's going to come in here, and I want to have something that, when somebody comes up and asks us a question, I want to say, we think we have something where we're going to be able to be in, get some sort of credit for what we're doing inside here and be in compliance, but without any pain. But like I said, residents are going to come in here, and I don't want it to be like that we don't have something. So I think we can, that's a good time frame. But I just, like I said, is that enough time for you? That's my question.
I'll need to speak to NIMCOG tomorrow.
Yeah.
Figure out what their timeline looks like. And truthfully, we still have to post for 48 hours before we can meet. So I think getting the request into NIMCOG, they can give us a better idea of how long it's going to take them. And then we can start.
I just don't want to put a date on today that we're saying we're doing it, and then we come to a next meeting and we have it and we don't have something together, and then people are here asking us, and it's like, well, we're working on the plan. It's just like, I just want to make sure that we do have something and, try to do it as quick as.
Let's hold the date.
Yeah, that's all. I just didn't want,
Said it.
yeah, I just didn't want to do it, it looked like you're looking for a date, and I don't want to do that unless we, like I said, I'm not trying to rush Alex, I want to give it a time to get the things together, but like I said, when we do sit down, I want us all to feel comfortable that we have something, that we think we have what we want, but you may come into a couple of things when you're looking at it and find out, like, you know what, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work, that isn't going to work, and then we're having another meeting, and we're going to come back.
The 8th or the 15th, it really, hopefully could be one of those two,
Yeah.
because the week after that, school vacation,
Yeah.
and now we're getting into a different problem.
I'm not trying to delay it, I just want to clarify that, I don't want to lock something up and just say, we're going to have a meeting on that today, and then we don't have a plan, you know what I mean?
We can
That's all.
put the placeholder for the 8th if that's what everyone decides on, but I think we do need to, again, manage residents' expectations, because I would hate for people to come in, see what we're going to be talking about on the 8th, and have all this feedback that we then can't incorporate. We're not going to have, this isn't like the first time we went through this process with months of hearings and all this outreach and feedback that we can incorporate. We do have to move expeditiously. So that's just one thing I want to make sure residents understand. Do be engaged, do get your questions in, get your thoughts in now, if you have thoughts on what was discussed. It's no secret what the plan that's going to be worked on is, but there might be detail changes, and we're not going to have the luxury that we would have had over the past 4 years to tweak that on the run and keep taking bites at the apple. So I just want to make sure that we manage residents' expectations on that.
Let me just quickly go around mine.
Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Fuchsia, you on board with what we're discussing?
Yes.
Mr. Fattah?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Champa?
I just want to ask one clarification. The Ames Pond 25 acres, we're not saying we're going to zone it and nobody can build it. We're just going to zone the MBTA communities for it because it already meets it. And basically, if someone wanted to do something there, they basically would be replacing one for one. But we're not putting any restrictions. We're just changing the zoning.
Yeah, you're saying the quiet part out loud.
Basically, ultimately, you would have to knock something.
You got it.
Yeah.
Build
You got
something
it.
back that is the same exact size.
The chair is on board with this as well.
All right,
You ready?
yep,
All right, I'll do mine first.
yep, go ahead.
All right, so I think we're done, so I'll take a motion for adjournment for the planning board.
So moved.
A motion made, do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we're going to do the same thing.
I'll make a motion.
I got a motion to adjourn, we got a second. All those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.